Hey, everybody. Welcome to Human Reaction, our debate night live stream. Sorry for that interesting little false start there. We're still figuring out this technology. This is new stuff for us, but we appreciate you tuning in, and we're going to have a very interesting night. Kyle,
Yeah.
what are you most looking forward to this
Well, I just want
evening?
to say, yeah, it was like a last 5 minute scramble there to get everything working. So,
Yeah,
uh,
maybe we need to crack another beverage and
I am looking forward to Trump. I think trying to overcome the hurdles that have been put in front of him. Right. Yeah. Actually, could you turn down that in my ear?
I will.
I'm hearing CNN. I don't want to hear CNN.
Frank
in my ear.
Luntz is just too much for me right now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Trump trying to overcome the hurdles and kind of what tactics he has there, because one of the biggest things that I'm thinking of is the mic cutting off, and they're going to probably very strategically do that. But also, there's this weird rule that they have now with the delay. Like they're putting a 2 minute delay on when normally it's 7 seconds, and I'm curious what that's all about, because a lot of people have they got the conspiracy hats on with there.
Well, I have to say I'm one of them because, yeah, it is customary in broadcast to have about a 7-second delay, which is enough for you to go back and scrub out, a swear word really is traditionally the use for it. 1 to 2 minutes, as has been rumored, is certainly a lot more than you need for that sort of thing, which makes you wonder, what are they trying to go back and scrub out? Is it going to be maybe something good or bad that is said either by President Biden or by President Trump? It could be very interesting to see
It,
if there are discrepancies that appear after this is over.
It'll be Biden will fall down, and we just will have no idea. which that's another thing that they did that's weird here. Like there's so many anomalies that are happening here. Like normally these don't happen before the conventions. Normally they don't do the mic cutoff thing. Normally they don't put a 2 minute delay on. Normally there's an audience. Right now there's just three moderators,
Right.
and it's an empty room, which
Totally.
is strange.
Very strange. It reminds me actually of live sports during COVID when they would have like football teams playing in empty stadiums and they would pipe in crowd noise. I wonder if they're going to have crowd noise here.
Let's pull it up here.
It looks like we're seeing some
Oh,
historic
these are
footage
highlights, yeah.
of previous debates, but
They were throwing, as we were getting prepared for this, they were throwing up some old footage from the previous debates, and it was interesting watching. Biden was quite a bit sharper.
yeah, quite true, quite true. I'm just going to bring this up in the background so we don't miss anything.
Are they trying to mask shame him right now on the old one? I guess that was during COVID, right?
That was during COVID, yes. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how this goes. I mean, obviously, all the highlights that they've been showing so far tonight leading up to this have been a very different Biden, as we've been discussing. It's certainly not the version of Biden that we've been seeing in the last couple of days. Yeah, very.
Liam in the chat is saying the stream was cut from X. Yeah, we were having problems.
Yeah, sorry about that, Liam.
Yeah,
We had to
tried.
we had to cut bait there because we had some technical difficulties. But we're going to commit to YouTube and hope that they won't censor us, and that CNN won't give us a copyright strike. Which, well, we'll just have to see. But interestingly, obviously, you can go to YouTube and you can look and see how many independent streamers are leveraging these live feeds. I mean, obviously, every major news network has one: C-SPAN, CBS, NBC, CNN, of course, PBS, you name it, Fox News. But also Steven Crowder, I believe Timcast will be doing a show. Probably already are doing a show.
Rumble is crashing on me. Like I've been trying to do a bunch of stuff on Rumble, and Rumble is just every time I try to do anything, it just crashes. I get an error 500 on it.
I think it's a CNN conspiracy. They're trying to funnel everyone through their channel on YouTube, period.
Yeah, maybe there's a DDoS that's happening or something like that, right?
It could be.
I wouldn't be surprised by that. But also, it could just be everybody's flooding over to Rumble because they're worried about the censorship stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, we're going to dive right into the censorship stuff. I dare CNN to give us copyright strike. I said this much on Twitter earlier via the HR account. One, fuck censorship. Two, we don't make any money at this, so it's not like if they ban our channel, it's going to cause a dramatic decrease in our revenue. I mean, it would be a decrease in our revenue, certainly, but I think it's only for a week on your first strike, so we'd take the time out. I think it's worth it to put this finger in their eye.
Well, and we can maybe do some learning with how that actually looks like, because we've never actually had one before.
That's true.
Hopefully, it doesn't.
We gotta push the envelope so we see what the punishment is like.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, what do you think Joe Biden is going to be taking as far as a drug cocktail this evening? And if anybody has a thought in the chat, Liam, feel free to chime in. What do you think Biden's going to be on tonight?
I mean, it has to be the best performance-enhancing drugs there is, right? Because I think back to the State of the Union address, and he actually was pretty functional during that, and he was able to do a 2-hour period. He was starting to peter off towards the end, but by that time, like he did well. He was going back and forth with the Republicans in the audience, so they might be able to pull him through this. But that's another thing of the conspiracies here is a lot of people think that this might be the excuse for them to can Biden and try to find another thing because it's like, oh, he's clearly not fit, and then they find the new nominee, right? Like that is one of the theories that exists out there.
Well, I am excited to see what Biden appears on stage. We've got about 8 seconds here, I suppose, until the debate starts. We're going to turn this up, and we're going to chime in here and there.
Yeah, Russ, all of the Mets, that's what they have.
Russ commenting, all the Mets for the drugs.
We're live from Georgia, a key battleground state in the race for the White House. In just moments, the current U.S. president will debate the former U.S. president as their party's presumptive nominees.
Oh, how do we get rid of those stupid captions?
In American history. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States.
Everyone ignore the captions.
To our studios in Atlanta.
Actually, the captions might be nice.
It could be nice. It's accessibility.
This debate is being produced
Jake,
by CNN.
or Bennett, I should say.
This
is like the first time I've called him by his first name in a long time.
CNN.com,
Jake.
CNN Max, and CNN.
Yeah, Hunter's probably in the back just being like, hey, Dad, I got some powder for you.
Come join me in this bathroom stall real quick before we hit the stage.
Everybody's coming in. Hello, Evan. Hello, Super Shoe.
Super Shoe. Need a little bit more volume from us, Super Shoe? I think we can do that.
Yeah, from our mics,
Good
not from
evening,
the
I'm Dana
desktop.
Bash, anchor of CNN's
How's that,
Inside
sir?
Politics
A little better?
and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake
We're
Tapper,
using a
anchor of
bunch of
CNN's
brand new
The Lead
technology
and
right now that we
co-anchor
haven't
of State of
used.
the Union. Dana and I will
Sorry, Bennett, I
co-moderate this
let
evening.
them know
Our
that that's
job
your real
is to
name.
facilitate
Well, it does
a
say so
debate
right there.
between the two
They might have thought it was a
candidates
different
tonight.
Bennett.
Okay,
Before we
okay.
introduce
Let's
them, we want to
tune
share
in
the
and listen here.
rules of the debate with the
I'm so
audience at
excited.
home.
What are the
Former
rules?
President Trump will be on the left
Yeah,
side.
let
of
us
the
know if our
screen.
mics are good
President Biden
and
will
audio
be
and
appearing
everything.
on the right. A coin toss determined their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the
Trump
end
is
of
just
the
gonna
debate,
be shouting
each candidate will
from the
get
other
2
room.
minutes for closing statements.
What up, David?
There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Now, who do we think is wearing Joe Biden's skin suit tonight? Because I got 60-40 odds it's Obama. Look at that gait. Got a little swagger.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States.
Oh, this is going to be a
Donald
train
Trump.
wreck, isn't it?
Oh, look at that swag. Look at that swagger.
Oh, dude.
He's a man with a game plan
This is-
right here.
this is gonna be
he's
a train
He's
wreck.
ready to go savage on him. There's
Gentlemen,
no audience.
thanks so
It's
much for
crazy.
being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall.
Sounding a bit froggy
Pandemic
so
was
far.
so badly handled.
Ooh.
Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach in your arm.
What did they
You'll be
inject
all
into
right."
you?
The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of households
sounds really
where the
bad.
kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together.
Guys, I never thought that 2 straight minutes of Biden talking would feel like such an eternity, but it really does.
We brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue.
I would have thought he came out sounding better. I
So
thought this would be like
$15
second hour Biden.
a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior.
He really
has to
does
pay
sound
more
pretty
than
low energy.
$200 for any
doesn't-
drug, all the drugs
his
they can
chin
approve
looks
to
very
get
droopy.
next year.
Well, that's
And the
just
situation is making.
That's the
we're gonna make
mask.
that
it's just because
available to
Obama's
everybody.
face and his face
All
are very
Americans.
different. It's
So
hard to
we're
glue it
working to
on.
bring
Is
down
Obama
the
doing
prices
whiteface?
around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID, and when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce-back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
It
Thank
does.
you,
It
President
does feel
Biden.
very weird, David.
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he's the greatest economy in the world.
Dude, his mask is
And,
falling
you
off.
know, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any
He's
president
just
has in
no,
any
it
one
does
term.
not sound good.
He's the only
Are
president.
they actually trying to get rid of him? I feel like they just didn't give him any cocktail.
Turns out they gave him an Ambien.
The idea that he did something
what is
that
happening?
was significant
Get out there, champ.
in the military. You know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still found ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs.
Every time Trump
And the
says
jobs
in
went
history,
down, and then they bounced
you gotta
back,
drink.
And he's taking credit for bounce
Oh,
back
yeah, gotta
jobs. You
pull
can't
up
do
the,
that. He also said he inherited
the drinking thing
9%
that Kaylee
inflation. No,
put
he
in the
inherited
Discord.
almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job.
I see what he's doing here.
And I will tell
It's a good
you,
pivot.
not
It is a
only
good-
doing
it is a
that,
good
but
pivot.
throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He's got a
He
pretty.
had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening?
We have 1,000
We're in a
trillionaires
situation
in
where
America.
They, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just
If
paid
each trillionaire
24%,
pays $1 trillion, we can bring down the
either one of
debt.
those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period.
this
We'd be
is
able to
so
wipe
bad.
out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health
Elder
care
care.
system.
Let's talk about
making
elder
sure
care.
that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look,
Punch this, Trump. Punch this.
if
Oh,
we
shoot.
finally beat Medicare,
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Wow.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them
Dialed.
on Social Security.
tell
They're
when
going to
Biden or
destroy
when Trump
Social
has
Security.
something,
This
he's like-
man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in,
geez.
they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence, and it's a shame.
This
What's
angle does
happened
not
to
look
our
very good at
country
Biden.
in the
The
last
side
4
angle. I
years
don't know what they're doing
is
here.
not
They're
to be
trying to
believed.
him
Foreign
down or
countries,
something. I don't
I'm
know.
friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, You had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back
We
to
got
the
our
states.
editor
Everybody,
complaining
without
about their
exception.
edits.
Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives.
Tell us how you really feel,
Everybody
Bennett.
wanted it back. Religious leaders.
It's like I could have done better.
And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for
they put him
rape,
as he's like-
incest, and the life of
he's
the
like
mother.
drooping
I think
around.
it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they
never
will
seen this before.
take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to wrestle them across state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women
He does not look good.
by the
doesn't.
same
He does
people he
not look
allows to
good.
come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits
Doesn't he
on
look
how
a
late
little
a woman
lost?
should be able to terminate a
he looks
pregnancy?
so
I
bad
supported
right now.
Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians,
What?
that the founders wanted
Dude,
the
if you compare
politicians
this
to be the ones making
if you
decisions
compare this to
about
the State
women's
of the
health
Union address,
is
it's like
ridiculous.
he's declined
It's the last.
80%.
No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
You're lying. That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, Constitutional Scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of
Almost got into a little bit of an argument there.
Crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states
I'm actually
and
blown away
overburdening
by
cities such
how
as
bad
New
he
York
is
and
here
Chicago, and in some
getting here.
cases causing real safety and security concerns.
anyone watching
Given
that is
that,
just gonna
why
see
should
it.
voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed me, endorsed my
Almost
position.
turned into a debate.
In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think that's what he said either.
Okay, here we
We
go.
had the safest border in the history of our country. The border,
He's just saying what we're all thinking.
All he had to do was leave
I
it.
really don't know what he
He
said.
decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into
Look
our
at him
country
just
right
staring
now.
off
All
into nothing.
terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said close the border. We had the
doing
safest
pretty good.
border in history. In that final couple of months
Yeah, I
of
think
my
so.
presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president.
Like,
but
just like
I won't say that,
aesthetically, he's
but
doing
they
pretty
endorsed
good,
me
like, I
for
feel like.
president. Brandon,
on
just
vibes,
stick to him.
he's kind of
But
winning.
Look,
I mean,
we
he's
had
very
the
much
safest
winning
border in
compared to
history.
Biden's vibes.
Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it, and people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration.
Oh, boy.
Kill three American soldiers. Kill 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he
The
said.
look on Trump's
Once
face as
again,
he's holding it in
exaggerating, he's
is
lying.
so stern.
President Trump,
trying to figure out,
staying on
like,
the
the
topic
thing
of
he should say
immigration,
to
you've said that you're going to carry
pop
out,
him.
quote, the
Yeah.
largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport
think that's
every
right. He just has
undocumented
to be on his
immigrant
best
in
behavior when he
America,
wins.
including those
That's
who
right.
have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the Union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these three incredible young girls over the last few days.
He kept
One
it
of them, I
simple
just
for the
spoke to the
audience.
mother, and
Best
he just
behavior.
had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible.
Dude,
what's
look at Biden's
taken
face.
place? What's taken place in our country? We're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast, because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved, choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half, because he's done all these great things that we did, and I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by
Thank you,
allowing
President Trump.
all of these people to come in.
President
and it's
Biden?
a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example,
Good start.
veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families
They have
have it
what?
because what happened,
Insurance.
whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits,
barely got
they're
that
all
out there.
being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke
we
to
saw
all
you
about
there.
those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to.
Oh, hey,
He was
David.
standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers.
David, thank
My
you for the
son
super
was
chat.
not a
We'll get
loser,
to you
was
at the
not a
break.
sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
He just called him a
First of all,
loser.
that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it.
4-star general
Period.
who?
That's number one.
Yeah, let's get a name.
And number two,
Can we get a
the
testimony on
idea,
that?
The idea that I
Five-star
have to
Sky.
apologize to you for anything along
all
the
I
line.
heard.
We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history.
I'm
American
pretty sure
history.
that's
And
probably
they
not true.
now are their family.
Maybe.
The only
Maybe it's
sacred
true.
obligation
Can
we have
anybody
as a
fact check
country
that? Has the
is
Biden
to
administration
care
done
our
more for
veterans
veterans
when
than
they
any
come
other
home,
administration
and
in
their
American
families,
history?
and
I don't
equip
remember
them
what
when
the
they go to
PACT
war.
Act was.
That's
I don't
what we're
remember.
doing.
I'll have to
That's
ask
what
our
the VA
friends
is
at
doing
CBA.
now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war
This is just a- they're
against
just-
Ukraine.
This-
We're
which
drinking
is
from a
now
fire
in
hose
its
here.
This
third
is
year.
so different.
Are we going to get a
Former
break?
President Trump, Russian President Vladimir
Biden is such a
Putin
mouth
says he'll
breather here,
only
says
end
Evan.
this war if Russia keeps the
He really
Ukrainian
is.
territory it has already claimed.
All right, we're getting into the Ukraine
and
war, guys. It's going to
Ukraine
get spicy.
abandons its bid
Dave
to
will sound
join
off in the
NATO.
chat.
Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the
start.
worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight.
I don't know. They did lie to
And they
Trump.
like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as
Look at that
Russia
smile.
and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the
Oh, that's a
president
happy
that,
Biden.
that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded.
Do you think so,
Ukraine.
Bennett?
A lot of
They're
people
now starting
are
to
dead
kick in?
right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost. But he should have fired those generals. No general
one that we couldn't get the name
got
of.
fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment
Who just
behind.
walked in front of
we lost
Biden's
13 beautiful
camera?
soldiers.
Bennett
and
wouldn't have let
38
that happen.
soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last
I mean, it's a
point
really
first.
good strategy to just start
Iran
every
attacked American
section with,
troops,
he's a total
kill
liar.
or
It does work.
cause
He's a
great
liar, just all
damage
malarkey.
for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where...
Probably shouldn't mention
take
that.
a look at what Trump did in Ukraine. This guy told Trump, do whatever you want, do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did.
Which
to
guy?
Putin encouraged
Is
him,
it
do
Putin?
whatever you
Okay.
want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish. Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
if
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
Acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this
Yeah, we're
point.
boosting GDP.
And
That's
our
right.
NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East.
Trump just looked at it
In
like,
October,
is that true?
Hamas
he had to think
attacked
about it.
Israel, killing
No,
more
which I
than
don't
1,000
think is
people
true.
and taking hundreds of hostages.
Oh, I certainly don't
Among
think that's
those
true. I'm pretty
held
sure the
and
U.S.
thought
is
to
by
still
far
be
and away
alive
the
are
largest
5
funder of NATO at this
Yeah.
point.
Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian
this'll be
crisis
really
in
interesting.
Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel.
He almost got there.
He almost so close.
One Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so there are 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts.
You know, Trump's just like thinking about what the kill shot's going to be.
Like we did Bin Laden.
Somewhere in there,
I mean, that Medicaid zinger was a pretty good start.
Greatly weakened Hamas. Greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent $100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants
Just
to
a
get
bunch
out
of
of
malarkey.
NATO. You understand NATO? He's gonna put
Everything
on
you just
NATO.
heard was a lie.
The idea that we have our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in.
David, let us know how you're doing in the chat with another super
and
chat.
Then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world.
God, Trump's facial expressions are really killer right
including
now.
Japan,
Look at that one.
I like
South
the tongue
Korea,
move.
because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations.
So while Trump talks about his trade deals,
Because
I
if
just have
you
to
add 'em
point
up,
out,
they're about the same
David's
size
super chat
economically.
really
Their
calls out
economy is
here
about the same size
the
as
energy
the
level.
United States. And they were no
Trump is answering
cars,
whatever question he
they don't
wants.
want
Biden
anything
is
that we
barely
have, but we're
scraping by
supposed to
answering the
take
question
their
that's
cars, their food, their
softballed to
everything,
him.
their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed
I
is they
think
don't want to
Trump's
pay.
looking for the
and the only
zingers, and
reason
he's trying to find
that
them.
he
He's
can
kind of
play
slipping in, but he's
games
not
with
quite,
NATO
you know.
is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said.
The interesting thing is I
and
think
he's
both
right
of these
about
guys
this. I
need
said,
to play
no,
off the energy
I'm
of
not
an
gonna
audience
support
in
NATO
order
if
to
you don't
have
pay. They asked me
gusto.
that question. Would you
You know,
guard us
I
against
think
Russia?
the energy for
At a
Biden
very
really just keeps
secret
him
meeting of
animated
the
as a
28
person, and for Trump,
states
that's what
at
brings
that
out the
time, nations at
the
that time.
jovialness.
They said, no,
Yeah.
if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's
Thank you.
bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy.
actually get to get to the
Former
question.
President Trump,
And he
I
really
wanna ask
hasn't.
you about January 6, 2021. After
really
you
quiet.
rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally
Thanks,
mandated
Evan.
counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore
Test,
an
test,
oath
test.
to,
Am I good,
quote,
Evan?
preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that.
What's up,
and let me
Watson?
tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the
hey, Katie.
United States' reputation under this man's leadership?
Bennett, I agree. I
is
think you were completely
horrible,
wrong about the drugs kicking
including
in.
weaponization,
I think they
which
gave
I'm
him
sure at some
the
point
too
we'll be
long
talking
time
about,
release. They really
where he
needed
goes after
the
his
shot in the
political
arm
opponent 'cause he can't be unfair and
cocktail here.
square.
Because they can always like shoot him
You
back
have
up
80
during a break,
seconds
right?
left. My
Assuming
question
there is
was,
one.
what do you say to those
We're
voters
40
who
minutes
believe
past
that
the
you
hour now.
violated
Did the drug
your
test happen?
constitutional oath through
I
your
don't think so.
actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and
Oh,
worry
we're
that you'll
going
do it again?
J6.
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying,
Filmmaker.
oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible
was
for
like
this.
pulling at an earpiece
Because
or
I offered her
something.
10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too,
Does
and
Biden
you
have
could feel
hearing
it.
aids?
And I said, they ought to have some
I don't think so.
National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her, and she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for
Every
3
time he
hours.
talks, it's like, oof.
3 hours watching,
Yeah.
begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He didn't do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities.
That's a
You
good
go to
response.
Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man.
Oh, who had that on their bingo
The fact
card?
of the matter is,
It had to be there, right?
What he's telling you is simply not
That was a
true.
good move.
The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in
Uh-oh.
Oh, we losing a buffer? Hope that doesn't mean the stream just went down.
Capitol Hill. And all
Nope,
those
we're good.
people, every one of those who were convicted
No hands.
was turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots? Come on. When I asked
Come
him
on,
about
man.
the debates we had first time around,
God, we're so
I
funny.
said, will you denounce
I like
the
to think I'm
Proud
funny.
Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month,
I'll be very
you said if
curious how he
reelected, you
navigates
would,
this.
quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir.
I'll be curious how that
wasn't-
answer
you wanna respond? Go ahead. I'll
lands
give you
with
a
like a
minute to
normal
respond.
audience.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
wasn't the most
idea
cogent answer I've ever heard Trump
that I
give.
did anything wrong.
Kind of a lot to cover
What
in a
you're
minute, I
talking about
guess.
is
Like it's
outrageous.
people in the
It's
know
simply a
know what
lie,
he's talking
number
about,
one.
right? But let's
Number
no.
two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president
They
is
really like
wrong.
that retribution
It's simply
word.
wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before.
Well, I don't
Number
know.
three,
We all remember Dark Brandon.
crimes that you are still
I feel like that was
charged
pretty
with.
darn
Think of all the
close.
civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having
He shouldn't
sex
be
with
nodding.
He
He
should not be
on
nodding.
That looks
the
bad.
night
That's a bad look.
while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? The rules of an alley cat.
Trump should not be making that
Isn't
face.
that true?
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face.
Like what?
I don't know what the juries will do.
Totally
But I
not
do
political.
know he has a real problem.
Totally not going after
And
your
so
political
the fact that
opponents.
Definitely
did you ever
not.
think
Totally
you heard any
not.
president say
He's just got more
that
cases
I'm going to
coming.
seek retribution? Do you ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided.
Who had Hitler on their
because of
bingo
that,
card?
I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas. torches, and
Man,
singing the same.
Charlottesville hasn't come up in a while.
They sang
Yeah.
Something that's
when
like
we went
left
back
public
in
parlance,
Germany.
I feel like.
And the young woman got killed. They spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people?"
Very fine people.
The ones who got
Very
killed,
fine
the
people
one who
really
tried to
going back
stop
there?
him, and the one who
Probably
said,
good
"I
people
think
on both
they're
sides."
fine people on both sides."
Come on,
What
man. You can.
American
That's so
president
easily debunked.
would
Like
ever
that's
say?
so.
Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same.
Dude, that is
anesthetic
only
bomb,
pandering to
carrying
the
swastikas.
deepest blue base
With
right
fine
there. That is
people.
not hitting the middle
This is the guy who
whatsoever.
says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
Yeah, both should be on the bingo cards.
President
Super
Trump.
Sue.
Jake,
Oh,
both
true
of
point.
you know that story has
bring up
been
the dead
totally
son.
wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on that. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance.
Biden
He's
looks
not equipped to
confused
be
as why he's
president.
run.
You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate.
Thank you,
We're trying
David,
to
I will.
justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place.
This is exactly
Every
true, and
anchor
Trump
has
needs to
every
pivot off of
reasonable
the
actor
Trump is
has
an evil
debunked
person
it.
line
And just the other day
immediately.
it came out
This
where it was
is
fully debunked.
not allowing him
It's
to
a
really
nonsense story.
do a good
He
job here.
knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunk.
Pivot.
It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that
then open up the clip
somehow
another
that's the only
30
reason
seconds.
I ran
Or read the
because I was worried
transcript.
A guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods,
Those
carrying
tiki
those
torches.
torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Wow. All right, guys. Heck of a first quarter or half or
However deep we're into this thing.
hopefully we're further through than halfway.
Yeah, the first thing that I'm thinking right now is, can you turn that down on my headphones?
Yes, sir.
Is just the tone of the debate as a whole because of the format. There not being an audience there. It's very
The energy is down.
strange.
The energy
yeah.
is down for sure, and that is definitely hurting Biden. And actually, in my view, and I think maybe members of the chat, let me know if you agree, helping Trump come across a little bit more rationally and a little bit more measured, at least through the first probably 3/4 of that. What were your thoughts?
Well, it's kind of like his recent appearance on the All In podcast, where he was a lot more nuanced in his stuff, and it was kind of like much more personal. It wasn't kind of the big, comedic flair Trump that you see at rallies, because that's all we really ever see is that type of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Where this is much more like that style, where it's like, oh, he's not the very boisterous person I always see. There's like different modes that he can go into, and in that way that might be helpful for certain kind of middle of the road audience that's like, I just don't like his personality. And maybe that helps here. I don't know.
It could. And you know what I think is certainly helping his case is actually just sounding cogent and coherent. I mean, the juxtaposition with
next to
Biden
Ooh.
is so stark. I mean, it's really stark. And to the point that I noticed in the chat, I know a lot of people were like, wow, this is really bad. This is really sad. And it really is. Like, it's hard to listen to Biden speak at this debate.
Or watch him while Trump's talking. Like the way his eyes just like drone around. It's very unnerving. You feel bad for the guy. You're like, what are you doing here? I don't think you understand why you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. People, let me know. Can you hear Kyle enough? I've just gotten another request to turn Kyle up more. So, yeah, no, it's
It
true.
might be when I'm turning to you. I might need to bring the mic.
Yeah,
in
put on
to
your best
do that.
your best broadcast voice.
Yeah.
What do you feel like issues wise? What do you think were Biden's highlights and lowlights issues wise?
There was one, two normal people. I think the convicted felon thing lands to people that haven't paid attention to anything, which is most people, right? So like when he had that zinger of being like, well, you're the only convicted felon, that whole thing, that type of stuff probably lands with some people, but a little bit more sober-headed people that aren't fully bought into the TDS, which is increasingly decreasing. Just hearing him being like, well, that was debunked, that probably peels him away. So I don't know, but that seems to be Biden's best. Hit. Everything else on that, I felt like Trump took everything.
Yeah, I feel like the personal attacks were certainly the things that Biden was able to lean into the most, probably because he knows them the best.
Well, the suburban mom, right? Like they're going to be like, yeah, I don't want a convicted felon. That's crazy.
Yeah, and also, I mean, just the Democratic base that's been obviously watching CNN forever is going to be like, yeah, rah, rah, rah. I mean, like, absolutely, all that stuff is true. And we know, if you just read the transcript from Charlottesville from his speech, that's completely not true, and so many other things, but we don't need to go into that.
Well, and other stuff too, like if we're talking about Ukraine, I feel like American sentiment has changed on Ukraine quite a bit. So they're going to be much more on Trump's side, just as a whole.
Yes.
Like compared to the first year, right?
Yes.
Unless you're just like still the rabid, like, Zelensky is the superhero that we've all dreamed of kind of person. Immigration, I think that's always been a Trump issue. It's hard for Biden to kind of jump into that issue.
Indeed. I feel like it was a huge mistake for him to bring up Afghanistan. I think that was a huge strategic error on Biden's part.
Yeah, that was a strange one.
Yeah.
Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still
I don't mean
3
all
times
suburban
more
moms,
likely
Katie.
to die of pregnancy-related causes. And black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate.
I mean,
of
the ones
white
watching
Americans.
The View,
What do you say to black
Fair.
voters
Fair.
who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're trying to provide housing for black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporate corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest was forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more.
Yeah, millions have benefited, but also
Thank you, President Trump.
millions who never went to college, paid their bills, paid their taxes,
It's also interesting.
got to pay for
very
those
bad.
student loans.
He
The
caused the
African-American
inflation, and it's killing black
movement
families
towards
and
Trump is also
Hispanic
very
families
interesting.
and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be It could be 19 and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy. Absolutely decimated the economy.
Okay, that was COVID,
That's why
though.
there was no inflation at the
I'm
time.
pretty sure we all
No
know that was
jobs.
COVID.
It provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals.
Just ignore
who
what year
involved
that
communities,
was.
including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered with the ACA.
And don't get me wrong,
has
I think Trump
increased-
could have done
we
better
made
on
sure
that.
there's
But it's
still
$8,000
one of those
per
things,
True.
right,
person
where you're
in a
like,
family
yeah, but
get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again.
I
if they
agree with
win.
Dave that
We
Trump
find
should be trying to
ourselves
be
in a
like
position where the idea
hitting Biden on the
that
speech.
we're not doing
Oh,
any-
completely.
we put more police on the street than any
However,
administration
Bennett
has.
is right.
He wants to cut the cops.
It's pretty
We're
low-hanging
providing
fruit.
for Equity,
But it's one of those things
equity
where you just
and
gotta be
making
like-
sure people have a shot. to
It
make
can't be an emperor has
There's
no
a lot
clothes
going
moment,
on,
you know?
but in
Like,
inflation,
we're all
he
watching
caused it
this.
Yeah,
by
it's true.
Tremendous.
Right.
I think
now
it's actually better
physics in the way
strategically for him
we handle
not
the
to.
pandemic.
Thank
He
you.
called it out
Another
once.
persistent challenge is
If
the
he were to
climate
just
crisis.
Really kill it.
2023 was the
I think it might
hottest year
feel a
in recorded
little
history,
like a low
and
blow.
Just every now and then be
communities
like, sorry, I didn't
across
understand
the
that
country
last
are
part.
confronting the devastating effects
Could you
of
repeat yourself?
extreme
Actually,
heat,
don't. Never mind.
intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but
It's all
will
a
you
hoax.
take any action
It's all
as
fake.
president to slow the climate crisis?
These radical
Let me just
leftists.
go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what
computer's
he's
about
done
to
to the
die.
black population
Joe
is
just got a
horrible,
notification that the
including
computer's
fact that
going
for
down.
10 years he called them super
Please
predators.
hold.
We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these
Someone should
millions of
super chat
people
that statement,
pouring
I feel
into our
like.
country, and they're going to take the jobs.
And
it's
then-
already
and then we'll
started,
say it on the air.
And you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever.
H2O.
And we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental
Daddy.
numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that
For those
statistic
just watching, you
before I
gotta
walked on the
key into
stage,
this
actually.
chat.
Oh, yeah.
It's unhinged.
I don't know where
For the
hell
bot,
he's
they won't
going.
understand why I just said
The
that.
You
idea,
gotta key into this chat.
Shandy, he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. In history, we find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing what any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment.
Sounds like Joe could use
the
some clean
Paris
water.
Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back.
Oh,
No
yeah.
less essential
We've been
threat
hearing
to
that for the last
humanity
50
is climate
fucking
change.
years, Joe.
And he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The other thing is that
The Paris
China
Accord
wasn't a
was
part of
gonna
the Paris
cost us
Accord.
$1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and
Boom.
India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because
just like
I
a
didn't
money
want to
laundering
waste
scheme.
that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it, and it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of
can
people.
see why streamers
but
get,
we're
like, addicted to
destroying
the
our
chat.
country. They're taking over our
pretty funny in there.
schools,
That's
our
great.
hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
This is so weird without
The
like an
idea
audience
is
because that
that
would probably get great
we, in
applause.
fact,
All of these things, right?
we were-
Yeah.
well, the only ones
Like, oh,
with
he just called him a
consequence
criminal.
were
Oh, he
not,
called it a scam.
We're not
Oh.
members of,
Yeah.
of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able to, the United States can't get its pollution under control. One of the largest polluters in the world.
That's
number one.
so not
We're
true. We've
making
reduced our
significant
greenhouse
progress.
gas emissions
By
and all that by
2035, we
like
will have
what
cut
80%
pollution in
over the
half.
last
We have made
20, 30 years?
We've made significant
Dave
progress.
We're like
minutes.
by far
We
and away
continue
the
to make
leader
progress.
in
We set up a climate
clean
corps
energy
for thousands of
reducing
young people
emissions.
to learn how to
Dave made an
deal with
interesting
climate,
point.
just like
Ironically, the
Peace
U.S. is
Corps.
the only country to
And we're
accomplish
gonna-
the climate
we're
accord
moving in
goals despite
directions that
not
are
being
gonna
in it.
significantly change the elements of cause of pollution.
exactly.
But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
I
And
am
by the way-
impressed by Biden's ability to recall multiple
So every
things to
day,
talk
millions
about
of
per
Americans
statement.
struggle
That's
just to
actually the
make
most
ends
impressive
meet.
thing
For
I've
many
seen.
older Americans,
that
Social
he can
Security
recall
provides
things.
a critical
Yes.
lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social
Yes,
Security,
David, because of
seniors
fracking.
will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
Yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share.
Average.
Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%, 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000 after that.
Super
I think
chat
we
from
make the
Evan.
wealthy
Biden is rocking
begin to
that
pay their
forked
fair
chin.
share by increasing
Dude, his
from
chin's looking
1%
extra
beyond
droopy.
to be able to guarantee the program for
Is that part of the drug protocol?
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one.
He's
enough
just
to
going to
keep it
tax the
solid,
rich
but
more. I
the
mean, come on,
biggest
give me a
thing
more
is to
pedestrian,
defeat this
like
man
socialist,
because he
progressive
wants to get
talking
rid of
point,
Social Security.
please.
I do
He
remember
thinks there's plenty to
a
cut in
friend
Social
told me
Security.
their
He's
favorite
wanted to
quote of
cut
me from the
Social Security and
podcast is saying
Medicare
that Biden
both
has
times.
droopy chin
And
balls.
and if you look at the program put forward by
I'd
the
put
House
that on my
Republican caucus
LinkedIn profile.
that he, I believe, supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million
stores his
people
extra
would not
drugs.
have insurance because they were
The chat
previously
is
conditioned.
absolutely nailing
Only
it.
allows them to have that
Well done,
insurance
boys and-
is
and
the
girls.
fact that they in fact are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where I talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition.
It sounds like he just woke up,
just doesn't know what he's talking
which
about.
maybe actually he
Thank you,
did.
Probably
President Biden,
did.
President Trump.
Probably
So
sleeps
I've dealt
12
with
hours a day.
politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've
12
never
hours,
seen
that's
anybody
low. It's
lie
probably
like
like
this guy.
14 hours a
He
day.
lies.
16.
I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security,
I forget
He's
the,
destroying
I forget
it
the scenario
because
around the losers
millions
and
of
suckers
people are
thing.
pouring into our country,
know.
and they're putting them
remember
onto
that was a
Social
debunked
Security.
thing.
They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming
As
back.
they cut to
I've
Biden
never
and just
seen such
looking
anger
lost.
in our country before.
Ugh.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one who
This
acknowledged
isn't
that
Biden
that's
for
what he
sure.
said. He
Guys,
was the
tell
one
me in the
standing
chat
up
who's
when
wearing
he
this
said
skin
it.
suit right now.
Number one. Number two,
Someone's
guy-
do- it's
the
Obama doing
idea
whiteface.
that we're going to be in a situation
hope
where
so.
all these millions
Obama would-
Trump should just reach over
Obama
and
would be more coherent.
pull the
These
mask
aliens
off
are coming into
like
the country
Scooby-Doo.
and taking away our jobs.
I wish
There's
I
a
had
reason
Joe
why
Biden
we
energy.
have the fastest growing
Low
economy
energy.
in the world. The reason why we had the most successful
Sleepy
economy in the
Joe.
world. We're doing better than any other nation in the
The
world.
Biden crime
And by the
family.
way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession.
We should
And
change the
inflation's gonna
nomenclature,
increase
the
more.
saying
And
from
by the
sleeps
way,
like a
worst
baby to
president in
sleeps
history,
like Joe Biden.
159
Sleeps
presidential
like a-
scholars
Sleeps
voted
like a Biden.
Because
him
babies
the
don't
worst
sleep that well, to
president
be
in the
honest,
history of
but
the
Joe
United States
Biden
of
sure
America.
does.
President
Yeah.
Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President
David,
Biden
tell us more about
have
how
tried to
your
address this
child
issue,
care
But the
situation.
average cost of child care in this country has risen
We wanna
more
hear
than
from you,
$11,000
father of three.
a year per child. For many families,
He's a
the
cockroach
cost of
alien.
child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much
We
more
should
so
not.
than him.
We should not go
The
back
other
down
thing
this
is-
path. This is not
He
it.
doesn't
I like that
fire
we're just
people.
fighting over this general.
He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I
were
fired a lot of
fired.
the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You
I
pay a
wouldn't claim
price
to have
for
drained
it,
the swamp
but
there.
they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no
The
good.
40 out of
I
44
fired
cabinet
him.
members
This guy hasn't
not
fired
endorsing him.
anybody. He
It
never
helped
fired-
him figure out who
He
not
should
to
have
bring him on
fired
next time, right?
That's
every
true.
military man that was
If anything,
involved
that
with
gives me a little bit more hope
Afghan-
for Trump. He's like, well,
the
not those guys.
Afghanistan, horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. Look, he's the worst president.
Where are we
in the
going
history of
with
our
this?
country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He
Guys
wants open
who are just
borders.
listening
He wants our
to this
country
later,
either be
we're laughing at
destroyed
this
or he
chat
wants
so
to pick
much.
up those people
This
as
chat is so
voters.
funny.
You should go
And
watch this on
I
YouTube.
don't think we just can't let it
Super
happen.
Shoe says
If
he touches his face to
wins
release
this
more chin
election,
drugs.
Our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world.
The chat
We're
wants
the
more
United
alien
States
questions.
of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody. Number one.
I mean, I
Number
think that's
two,
probably
the
disputable at
idea
this point.
that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking.
Well, BRICS
Look
is
it up.
forming.
Go
While BRICS
online.
is forming and
151
Russia's
or
advancing and
58, don't hold me
Hamas is
exact
just doing
number.
what it wants to do. And
Presidential historians.
They're like,
You name
they
it.
had
They're like,
meetings
now's our
and they
chance.
voted.
Yeah.
Who's the worst president in American history? One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all
Watch is just
of
like,
American
forget
history.
all this
That's
nonsense.
a fact.
What about the aliens?
That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted.
I think
The
Biden
idea
is
that
walking
he is
proof that
knowing-
there is
doing
extraterrestrial
anything to deal
technology
with
on this planet.
childcare.
So there's no way that
He
man
did
should be
very-
animated
for
right
virtually
now.
nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men
China.
of single parents to be able to go back to
Hello,
work.
Scott.
Scott
we
says
should
CNN
encourage
keeps telling us how
businesses
bad things
to
are,
hold-
and that should be a
to
clue
have-
of how
Thank you,
bad
President
Biden's
Biden.
doing. This is
President
true.
Trump, the question was
CNN's
about
talking
what
about
would you
it.
do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst
Take away the
because
A
what
in
he's done is so
China.
bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show
That's a
you.
stretch,
And they
but I
rate
like
me
it.
one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Everybody
Well,
knows
the
it.
fact of the matter is that he's
They all
dead
say,
wrong
"Sir,
about,
he's the worst."
Increased the tariff. He will increase the taxes on middle class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference.
Look, I mean, the reality of the
Food
situation is the inflation that
and
we're
all
facing right
things
now
that are
is a
important.
tax on everyone.
Two,
So both
he's
of
in a
them are to
situation
blame
where
for
he
how much
talks
people are
about
paying.
how he has not raised, he somehow helped the middle class. Middle class have
Watson,
been
you must have been
devastated
watching the
by
recent
you.
Greer
Now
stuff.
you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years.
I'm going to need
which is
a
gonna
third zesty
fundamentally
beverage
bankrupt the country.
Yeah.
to make
You
it
have
through
the
this.
largest
I'm just finishing
deficit
my
of any
second.
president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made
We're rocking
any
the pina
contact,
coladas
any-
from
any-
Zesty
any
Beverages here in
progress
Bozeman.
That's
with
right.
China. We are the
Pina
lowest
Montana.
trade deficit with China since 2010.
Get them everywhere
Thank
beverages
you,
are
President
sold.
Biden.
You lost on
Thank you,
Within
President
Montana.
Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up.
Tricat says
Under
all I
your
want
term,
is
it
for
went
Trump
up.
to
Under
actually
your
answer
term,
the
it has
child care
gone up.
question.
Former
I think you're
President
not
Trump,
alone in that.
Despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he
The,
never
like,
took
sad-
out my
the
tariffs
sad,
because we bring in
like,
so much
head
money
wag
with
is
the
just
tariffs
so
that I
funny.
imposed
I'm
on
just like,
China. He never
yeah,
took
I
them
do.
away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Exactly,
Jake, we were
Super
doing very well
Shoe.
in addition until the COVID came along.
Because it was
We
the
had
it was the
the
first
2.5,
round of stimulus,
almost 3
right? And
years
then I think
of like
Biden brought in the
nobody's ever
second.
had
And was there a
before, any
third?
country in
I
every
can't
way.
remember.
I think
And
there were
then
3.
we had to
Yeah, I
get
think there were
tough,
3.
and it was the drugs pouring across the
And
border.
then, yeah, the PPP loans were that summer.
It started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen. The way they can spot it. We did a lot.
Is that the
And
one by
we were
Boston
getting
Dynamics?
Very low numbers. Very
Spot?
very low numbers.
don't
Then he
remember.
came along. The numbers. Have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways. They don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure
Then it went back
we
up.
used fentanyl these big machines that roll over and it comes across the border.
I don't know what the
And it
stats are
costs
on
a lot
that.
of money.
It made it
That
sound
was
like,
part
but
of the deal we put together. This bipartisan
they rose a
deal.
little.
More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of.
Maybe there
all
was two. I can't remember if there's a third or
and
not.
when we
Super
had
shit.
that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically." No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need.
I think you're
those
probably right,
machines.
Watson,
We
about
need those
Trump not knowing
machines.
about the
We're
aliens.
coming down very hard.
You got to
in
watch his
every
interview
country
with
in Asia
the
in
Logan
terms of
brother,
precursors
whichever
of
one that
fentanyl.
Logan
was.
Paul.
And Mexico
Oh.
is working with us to make sure
The Paul
that
brother.
we have
Paul
the
brother.
technology to be able to put it together.
I'm not
That's
cool,
what we have
guys.
to do.
Just know
we
that.
need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had two cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President
this'll be
Biden,
interesting.
you will be 86
Uh-oh.
at the end
Oh,
of
they're
your
just going
second
straight into
term.
the age.
How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world? well
Cue
into
the
your
worst
80s?
stutter of the night.
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the
Back in
United States Senate,
1792.
and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent.
But
I
this is the
think
time where
just
people
look
like
at the
hate
record.
career
Look what I've
politicians,
done.
right? So
I've
being like,
turned
well,
around the horrible
I've been here longer than
situation
anybody.
As I said,
Not a good
50
look.
million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment
100
in,
million, trillion,
in
billion.
enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips.
You can't look at this stage and not hear
those chips.
an
And we
old
lost
man
it
that could be
because he was
weeks,
sending
if
people
not days,
to
from
find
death.
the cheapest jobs overseas and then bring home a product. So
Honestly, I'm
I
surprised
went
he's made it
to
this
South
long,
Korea.
to be
I
honest.
convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States, and they're guess what? Those fabs they call that to build these chips. Those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them, and there's billions. About $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
Americans
President Biden, you
from
have
all over the
40
world.
seconds left.
I thought
Would
he
you
was
like
going to
add
pull a
anything?
Kamal
Yeah, I
Harris.
would.
These fabs,
The
they're a
idea
fancy
that
thing.
somehow
First of all, it's 3
we are
things.
this failing
FAB.
country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities.
Probably
We're the
Vladimir
most
Putin, I
progressive
suppose,
country
probably
in the
wouldn't
world
want
at
to
getting things
trade
done.
places with
We're the
you.
strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us, all of our allies. And our,
I think part of
and
the
our
agreement was
and
that
our-
nobody would have
those who he
earpieces. I think there was
calls
like
up
supposed to be an
from
earpiece
Kim
check.
Jong-un, we
What?
sent
I can't remember if that
letters
actually
to
made it through.
Putin,
That was
et
part of the
cetera.
original.
They don't want us
discussion.
At this debate?
Yeah.
No way.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who
There was a
have
moment where
concerns
Biden was
about
scratching
your
his ear and I was
capabilities
like-
to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood. That I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a
Hey,
golf
Cheryl.
match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good.
He's
I
in
feel
prison
the same.
shape.
But
He's
I
ready
was
for the
willing to
arts.
take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace them.
Biden's smile
you.
is so weird.
President Biden?
You can
Wait,
see
I just
he
got to
is
point out,
6'5"
I think
and
Trump
only
just
225 pounds.
he just
Or
made a boner
255
joke
pounds.
in a presidential debate.
Well, he said 6'4".
We knock on wood wherever we have wood.
Well, anyway, that's
Was that an age
Just take a look
joke?
at what
I think he
says
was talking
is
about
and
his like,
take a look
yeah,
at
it's
what
like
he
how,
is.
but maybe.
I don't know
Maybe
about that.
driving
I don't know
contest
about
with
that.
The reason I got my handicap
Chat, was
when
that a
I
boner joke or is that just me?
down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
These two old
I had
fuckers
no
are
idea how-
bragging
See,
about
you
their
swing, I know you
handicaps.
swing.
Okay,
Let's
you know,
not
you
act
know,
like
around-
children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's not act
Call
like
golf
children.
if you want to carry your
Yeah.
bag.
Specific
What a crazy
concern
thing to say.
that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted,
just likes
that
wood.
you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form
He can't
is
accept that.
unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter
Thank you,
at the
Evan.
time,
I appreciate
and
that.
also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small
Shoot,
number
they
of
just need to
people
talk
that
about how
went
many
to the
zins
Capitol,
they throw in
and
the
in
upper
many
decky,
cases were ushered
how many
in by
gun
the
pillies
police.
they got, and then they've
as
got the
Nancy
Zimmer
Pelosi
vote
said,
just absolutely
it was her
locked.
responsibility.
Although I don't
not
know,
mine.
Shu,
She
both
said
me and
that
Joe
loud
golf.
clear.
Yeah.
But the answer is, if the election
With a
is
gun
fair,
pilly in the
free,
upper
and
decky,
I
bro.
want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be
I'm
under
sure you do,
indictment
Watson. I'm
because
sure
I
you
wouldn't
do.
have been his political opponent because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation.
Just keep it that
And
way,
we're a
Shu.
failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these
Biden shouldn't be
Putin,
driving us
They
anywhere.
don't respect him. They
That
don't
doesn't
fear
seem
him.
safe.
They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's
I feel
going to
like
drive us
I feel
into
like he hasn't
World
driven a
War
car in a
III.
while. Although there was a recent
You want a
video like
World War
him in a
III.
Corvette or something, right?
Let him
Yeah,
follow
but there's
and win
like
and let Putin say,
a
"Do what you
secondary
want,"
driver
you know.
with like the student
Just do what
driver
you
wheel
want.
next to it.
There's a thing called Article 5.
Just in case.
Attack
At least with,
on
like, a
one
spare
attack
brake.
on all.
Passenger seat with the
Required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done.
We have heard
what
that.
they've done.
We have heard that tonight. yeah.
Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because of our own safety is at stake. And again,
Oh.
you want to have a war.
The
just
appeal
let
of the world
Putin go ahead
police.
and take Kyiv, make sure
He
they
is a
move
good
on,
servant
see
of
what
the
happens
state.
in Poland, Hungary, and other places along
God,
that
he is
border.
good.
Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question
I
was,
like that
will
Trump
you
emphasizes
accept
how
the results
sad
of
it
the
is
election,
when he's
very
going through it.
regardless
I
of
think it's
who
well, I
wins?
think it's
Yes or
useful
no,
too
please?
for a
True.
lot of people to be
If
like,
it's a fair
there's a lot of
and
people that's like
legal
rah-rah
and
no
good
matter what, but
election,
they don't realize that.
absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country.
So far, the
Not
only
one
person who's done any
single
name
court
calling
in America
is Biden.
said any of your claims
Actually
had any
true.
merit.
Actually true.
State or local. None.
You're a
But
whiner.
you
You're a
continue to
loser.
provoke this
He's a
lie
whiner twice.
about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The
There's
idea
three
if you
whiners.
lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be
Now
right
you're
back
crazy. Who knows what you'll do?
with more from the CNN presidential debate
All
live
right.
from Georgia.
Okay, so we're still going here,
got
guys.
another
We're 90
leg.
minutes
I think
in.
we got one more leg, right?
Wow. It's a lot.
What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, let's hear it in the chat. I know we had a lot of requests for aliens. Obviously, I don't think we're going to get anything
Yeah, I don't think
on
we're getting
aliens
aliens.
tonight.
Sorry, Watson.
I really wish we would. Honestly, I don't think that second section was as strong for Trump as the first.
I think I would agree with that.
I think Biden gained back a little bit of ground there.
Can you drop the sound in my headphones a bit?
I can and I will. I think. Maybe I just have to mute it. I'll just mute it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If those of you that maybe aren't familiar with us, it's Human Reaction Podcast. Normally, we do a pre-recorded show. This is one of our very few live events that we do. Of course, we wanted to be able to bring you all of our commentary on this very significant event. And, of course, it was also a little bit in spite because CNN said, oh, well, if you guys use our stream, then we're going to censor you or we're going to try to give you a copyright strike on YouTube.
Surprised we're still around.
And it was just like the anti-authoritarian in me was just like, well, now we have to do it. And, of course, we wish that our compatriots, David Rand and Bennett, were with us, but we're glad to have them in the chat. Thank you guys for chiming in as well. This has been a lot of fun. Kyle, what did you think were your highlights from that second section?
The chat. It's
You
kind
guys-
of addicting watching the chat, to be honest. Like, we've only done a handful of live streams, and this has been our biggest one here. Like, because like you said, we're normally a pre-recorded podcast, but it's fun watching the chat. I see why it's addicting for streamers. It's like, ooh, there's just like all these people in here. It's fun.
It is fun. It is fun. How did you feel that Biden did? I mean, obviously he had a couple more weird little moments of like kind of mumbling and stuttering. Was he better in that section than the first?
I think Shu might be right that he touched his face and activated the chin drugs. It's again. I didn't think he was doing as bad as he was in the first. I feel like he had a rough start, but still, it's just the energy is so low. And it just like even when they asked him the question about like, hey, you're 86, a lot of people have concerns with that. It's just like he just like looks at her and he's just like, what?
At least he didn't say I've never been more energetic and more sharp. Just look at me. Just look at me. Like, because if you look at him,
man.
If you look at him in this, especially when they pan out to that wide shot with Trump and Biden, I don't know what it is,
Just
but
aesthetically.
well, he's nearer, but he's sort of somehow shorter than Trump. The aesthetics aren't really in Biden's favor tonight, I don't think.
No.
Especially when they do the side-by-side frames where he's kind of staring blankly off into space. It is just not a good look.
Well, it's even because I know there was a lot of commentary on the chat about this was Trump being more reserved, which is less than what we normally we don't normally see that with him. He's usually in environments where he can be a lot more high energy. But even when like Biden's talking, he'll be making faces and he's kind of like giving these big smiles or these big grins. It's like, I know what I'm going to say next kind of stuff. Where like that energy is there from Trump, and Trump is also like Trump's 80, like he's also old, right? 79, 80, something like that, right?
They said he was going to be 82 at the
82,
end of his second term. So
yeah, but it's
78
like,
currently.
it's just like the difference of the at the end of his term. Okay,
Right.
yeah. It's just so there's like 7 years apart, but the difference between them is just so vast. And I feel like that in itself, it's like doesn't even really matter the policies. Like you're just like looking at it and you're like, okay, which one am I gonna take? The guy that has zero energy and is like could die at any moment, or the guy that might be old but at least he has some energy to him?
Absolutely.
We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Closing statements.
We've made significant progress.
Strong start.
Not a good start.
The debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term.
I agree, Shu.
We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate.
Do you hear that
I
like
think the tax
hollow
system is
balloon-like
fair.
sound?
Yeah.
The fact is,
What's
that
with
I
that?
said, nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did,
Well, also
well,
eliminating
for
the income
example,
tax. That was
he
part
wants
of
to
the
get away
other
with
50%
get
of
rid
that,
of
right?
True.
the ability of Medicare to for the ability to for the us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices.
Which is a
I'm gonna
drop
make
in
that
an
available
ocean
to every
of debt.
senior
But good job.
all along.
Yeah, the drugs are wearing out there.
And everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make
grab
sure
your chin.
we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country.
His chin is looking
We're going
very
to
empty.
continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
They need to
Like
refill.
so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we
First
want to do
insult.
that, we want to get rid of this tax,
I
that
can
tax.
remember, yeah.
But he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What
Actually,
we
I
did
think that's
was
gonna be a
incredible.
powerful
We
line in
rebuilt
hindsight.
the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate.
I don't know if Biden can
Anderson
stay much
Cooper and
longer.
Aaron Burnett starts
Well
now
past
on
his
CNN.
bedtime. Well, everybody, that was that.
I guess, yeah, some final thoughts here.
Well, I'm going to say this, first of all. I actually, surprisingly, thought that the moderators did a fairly impartial job.
Yeah, I think I would say that too.
I don't think there was anything in there where I was overtly like, oh, like that was a total hit job on Trump. I mean, I suppose you could maybe say that going into a lot of the like felonies and the indictments and the stuff around J6 was maybe a little bit of that. But I would say like at least their questions, the format, the timing was all pretty even-handed, I would say.
Strangely, probably one of the more even-handed debates that I've seen, like, of all time, to be honest.
Well, because it didn't allow...
I didn't even really think about it until you said it.
It just didn't allow either of them to sort of, like, kind of dominate the other. And I do think, and I legitimately do think, if they hadn't instituted these rules around the mics being muted and that sort of thing, like, Trump would have just walked all over Biden. Because he can. Listen to him. From the first words that Biden let out of his mouth, you were like, whoa, this guy does not have it. But Trump certainly, came out and sort of matched that energy, but with, I think, a little bit more of an articulate edge. And it certainly could have, he did take the energy up a time or two, but we didn't see that from Biden. Sometimes we see that sort of like the quiet, whispery Biden and then like the shouty Biden in a speech.
He did a lot of whispering.
Or he'll start out loud and then kind of, taper by the end. We didn't even really see the shouty Biden at all.
Yeah, Cheryl here says Trump off the cuff isn't as good as prepared points. He's squandering this final statement. And I kind of agree with that. I think we actually take for granted like his prepared points that he has very like he's tied them in. He's put them in a nice little bow. Those are the things that he really hits well with. But yeah, his closing statement, he kind of fumbled through it a little bit there.
Yeah, you could definitely tighten that up, I would say.
Yeah,
and
I think the general sentiment here is, and from everybody in the chat, is that generally underwhelming, right?
I would say so. Chat, let us know what you thought overall. I mean, what did you guys think were the strongest performances on either side? Kyle, did you have like a highlight moment that stuck out to you as like best moment or two?
There's nothing like the thing that I was paying the most attention to, I think, is what is going to be paid attention to by most just people. It's less so about the policy stuff. It's more so about the like they want to see can Biden do this? Like that's kind of what it is. And also there's a lot of people that as TDS has tapered off for a lot of people, there's a lot of people that they were like rabidly anti-Trump all the time, no matter what. It didn't really matter what it was. It's just because they've been like indoctrinated into being that. And there's a lot of people that are peeling out of that now. So the more that Trump looks like, oh, maybe he is actually kind of rational, like maybe he's not this crazy orange monster that I always thought he was.
Right.
So in that way, I think Trump being more rational and it actually being kind of underwhelming is probably helpful to Trump. And especially with Biden being extremely underwhelming for Biden is like really bad, actually. Like they needed him to be high energy, where Trump being underwhelming, strangely, this format probably helped Trump more actually now in hindsight.
I agree.
Thinking about it.
I agree. Well, and I think, those awkward silences that you would hear between the question being asked and Biden answering, even both of them, I thought the aesthetics here, like, and not just the visual aesthetics, but like the audio side of this, not having a live audience made it really strange, and it made the answers very stark, and you just wouldn't get the same kind of energy and response and like back and forth as you would in a normal live debate like this. So I don't know. I think this debate was probably a net negative for Biden.
Yeah,
and maybe neutral for Trump. Maybe even slightly positive because, as you said, he came across a little bit more
it's because
measured.
the people that love the high energy Trump, like they're already voting for Trump no matter what, right? So the people that are kind of like they want to see a more even-handed Trump because they're not happy with Biden, like that, it probably appeals to them more. And I think Bennett, you said something here. I think different perspectives is important for this. Maybe us in the chat find it underwhelming, but imagine not paying much attention lately and hearing Biden on this, right? I think that's the thing is, like, all of us here, we pay reasonable amount of attention to politics, right? And we kind of know what's going on in the world, and we kind of have like a pretty good, clear, I think, view of this stuff. But if you're just somebody that tunes in for the election and you're just like, oh, let's see who the debate is, maybe I'll decide who I vote, right? Like, that's going to be a different thing if you're just kind of that normal.
You know, he seemed a little
It is.
disoriented. He did get
Normal
stronger
person,
as the
right?
debate
Let's tune into this
went
for a
on, but
second.
by that time, I think the panic had set in, and I think you're going to hear discussions that I don't know will lead
Is his
to
suit
anything,
wet?
but you know, there is
His
going
suit
to
is
be
wet, I
discussion about
think.
whether he should continue. And I think part of it
Oh,
is
hear
Donald
this.
Trump did
Should he
not
continue?
meet his mission either. He could not resist the attention.
And this is what all the conspiracies were, is that they're going to use this to can Biden,
to prevaricate.
I think we can see
about
it.
a whole bunch of things.
That's what the narrative is.
About his own record, about Biden's record, and to seem petty and small at times.
I
So
agree, Cheryl.
What
I think it
you
was.
saw was a candidate who's deeply vulnerable and a president who may not be able to take advantage of it.
Listen, if anybody in America thinks that was even close to being an okay debate by Joe Biden, I'm living in a parallel universe. That was an unmitigated disaster for President Biden.
Oh,
from
wow.
the second he walked out.
He's
to the closing
former
statement.
Trump guy,
Biggest
though.
issue
Fair.
for Democrats.
But to hear
is
this on
abortion.
CNN.
And he couldn't give an answer. He gave an answer, he couldn't even give a coherent answer on the biggest issue for Democrats tonight. I've heard from leading Democrats across the United States, elected governors, congressmen, who are texting me and saying, I'm worried I'm going to lose if Joe Biden's at the top of the ticket. Bob Casey, I promise you tonight, in the state of Pennsylvania, is thrown up in his mouth because he knows that if he's got to stand next to Joe Biden, he's going down in Pennsylvania. If he's on the ticket, I don't know how it's going to work.
Why are we hearing sirens from downtown Atlanta? Oh, they're outside.
Any other way to slice it. His biggest
Oh, it's Atlanta.
issue that he had to prove to the American people was that he had the energy,
that
he had
bastion.
the stamina, and he didn't do that. And so I think that is of concern. And
Is there
and I think for a lot of
maybe there's like a
Democrats,
Hamas protest or like a Palestine protest or something going on?
I could see that.
I could see that happening outside.
In this debate, and talking to the Biden campaign, they say their dials started really moving away from Trump as he was increasing his personal attacks on Biden. So I think there was a lot about his kind of character and the
Which
kind of
primary
personal
debate was that,
nastiness
Zaku?
he was putting on display. That doesn't help him with the swing voters that he needs.
Is that a Republican debate you're
And I
thinking?
also think you saw him continue to get sort of more and more animated across the course of the debate, and give some really problematic answers about January 6th, some really problematic answers about Putin.
Problematic.
Scot-free tonight by any stretch.
Threats to
But
democracy,
there
one
is
might
no
say.
two ways about it. That was not a good debate for Joe Biden.
Ben?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, consensus at CNN
I
seems
love
to
Joe
be
Biden. I want
Trump
Joe
is bad for democracy, but Biden
Biden.
didn't do well.
He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all, and he looked. I'll give you the analysis.
well. I think
old man versus
we've heard all we
young
needed
man.
to hear to know that they're for
walk you
sure
through.
replacing
I
Biden.
was supposed to
Biden
see
is
it and
done.
say it,
This
but
was
I
the
just wanna
this
speak
was
from my
the
heart.
the building
Um,
7 of the Democratic
that guy.
primary.
As a good man,
Look it up.
he loves his country. He's doing the
What's
best he
Biden
can.
7? What's Building 7?
He had a
What's
job
Biden
tonight,
7?
to restore confidence of the country.
Oh,
and of the base,
goodness.
and he failed to do that. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider.
Remember when Van Jones was literally
taking a different
shaking?
course now. We're still far from our convention.
Literally shaking.
And there is time for this party to figure out a different way forward. if
There
he
is
wants
There's
to.
time.
There's time for him to
but
figure it
that
out.
was,
We're watching it happen,
not
you
what we
guys.
needed from Joe
Yeah,
Biden.
we're watching
was
it live
personally
right now
painful
that they're
for a lot of
beginning the
people. It's not just
transition.
panic, it's pain
The Biden
of
pivot.
what we saw tonight.
And if I may just add to that, I think Joe Biden lost in the first 3 minutes. I think a lot of voters probably
wow.
tuned out, and millions of people are having conversations with their families, with their friends, of if the president is up to the task and if he should step aside. And I'm someone who believes
think polling would
the former
suggest
president
most people
is a
think
threat
that.
to democracy. I think he is a threat to the America as we know it. He wants to fundamentally change our institutions. He has laid out what his plan is. I am not confident that that is the man to take him on. You cannot tell me democracy is on the line and then
Wow.
give that performance tonight. If, based on that, in 18 weeks, Donald Trump will be the president-elect.
The people doing focus
suppose
groups tonight, and we'll see if our
she
style
might be
group
right.
with
I'll be
Laura
curious
Trump
on the focus
confirms
groups
this.
as well.
That Biden
when that
scores
comes in.
pretty well
Where's
on the
Frank
issue
Luntz
where
at?
he's talking about
Get
the
Frank in
substance.
here.
And Trump's numbers went down both because he was ducking questions, he was lying about some things, and he was refusing to answer. And some of it was the tone. They don't like him. So when you see that, when you see sort of the statistics.
Wow.
You're going to look at
Chat,
like, oh, that's
do we
a mixed
think
bag. But to Vance's point
do
about
we
the
think that they're
president's
going to replace Biden,
performance,
and if
that's what
so,
caused the
with who?
panic. So
Who do you
the
think they're
que-
going to
the
replace him
question is,
with?
and my
Because it
question
sounds like
actually is, what
it sounds
happens?
like he's being
Because
replaced
to
right
his-
now.
It's a great
seems
political
like
strength of Joe Biden.
It'll be
is his
curious next
resilience
week.
and his stubbornness.
Next week, where is the sentiment? Like that'll be very curious.
I don't even know that it's going to be that long. I mean, I suppose it's Thursday, so yeah, you're probably right. By Monday, we'll probably have an answer.
The world's a stage, that is for sure, Cheryl.
I'm just telling you, to Abby's point, I've been doing this for 30
But
something years.
it is
going
weird
on
because
40
like
years, and I have
we
never,
all
ever
see the
heard
plot,
what happened on this
for
thing
what it is.
tonight
It's not a
happen
surprising
in the
plot,
middle of
right?
the debate. It
It's like
started early,
we know what
and
the
it
script writers
continued.
are doing.
To Vance's point, Van made a very important point.
True.
These are people who love Joe Biden.
Wow.
I feel that
Credit Joe
Newsom,
Biden,
right?
kicking Donald
Well,
Trump out of the
yeah,
White House
I mean,
for
you think
Democrats.
Newsom,
Who
but
else could it be?
You think
He fights
Newsom,
about a
but
lot of things. He
dude,
has generational
Unless they
issues, he
sack
has
this
regional
election
issues,
and try to get like a new rising star on the field or something.
I think the uniparty's play is get Trump to accept a neocon running mate, and then they know that the neocon is going to at least have some wiggle room, or then they can just off Trump, and then they've got their man on the inside, or woman. Maybe it's Nikki Haley.
Go for the
But
assassination.
But you know who I hope it is? You know who I hope it is, Kyle?
These guys know this best because they talk to them. There's this legacy in the Democratic
This?
Party. You don't challenge the incumbent.
Joe
because
got
of
his
what happened
hats.
in the past.
Our friend Kellen at Revved Up Promo put these together for us in the hopes that we would know tonight that Vivek was Trump's running mate. Well, we don't know that yet. It's still open. We don't know it ain't true. But I think we're on Team Vivek. So if you want one of these, we'll have them on the humanreactionpod.com. And you can grab one here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, Joe surprised me with this when we came in to prep for this. Yeah, Dave, we got one for you too.
Bennett, we didn't get you one because
Bennett, you're gone.
Because
you're European now.
you're
We
dead to
don't
us.
trust you anymore.
That's right. Go back to your Nordic socialist utopia with all your supermodel friends.
Can you turn them down in my headphones a bit? I'm like overwhelmed by them right now.
Is that better?
There's a lot of shrill voices.
Is that better? Are you
No,
on?
no, I'm not hearing it. Nothing's changed for me. Oh yeah, now I'm good. Now I'm good.
Oh, I guess your headphone too. Weird.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well,
Yeah,
hey,
I think just like some final thoughts before we peace out.
Let's do it.
It definitely seems like, especially in the CNN coverage, like they've gotten the green light to say it's time to replace Biden. So they're going to start pounding those war drums. I'll be curious to see where that moves. I think Dave is right. It's probably Newsom, but who knows? Maybe we have a rising star on our hands, or maybe Biden fights on. Maybe it's going to be the deep state versus Biden right now, and that's the real battle.
well, you have to ask yourself, is the Biden administration kind of running rogue at this moment? Because I think the party apparatus is probably saying, whoa, Biden's, over the hill. But people that are so close to and attached to power at this point don't want to readily give it up. So I wonder if there's not a little bit of infighting within the Democratic Party, with some saying Biden's our guy, we got to stick behind Biden, and some saying absolutely not.
Who else is their bench? I don't know who their bench is.
They don't have a deep bench.
There's nothing there.
They got to run AOC, or they don't have anything.
Who's the major people?
I mean,
He's
it's
not
Newsom.
going to fight on. I think you're right, Watson. Unless I don't know.
It's Newsom,
Maybe
or
it's Jill. Maybe Jill just keeps the fight going, and they just keep pumping him full of drugs. It's just like, no, hubby, you got to keep going.
Just gotta walk him across a few more stages. He'll be
she
fine.
likes being very important. You can tell she's that type of person.
Well, and I think that's the problem within the administration is there's a lot of people in there who are running the show, and they do not want to give up the reins of power. So,
and they
we'll
can
have to
weaken
see.
Bernie's it, right?
I suppose.
They'll beg RFK to do it. I don't know about that.
I think that's probably not polling well.
That would be wild if they're just like, oh, we got nobody that can beat Trump. RFK, do you want to come back to that point? I don't see that happening though.
No, I imagine not. But it'll be very interesting to see, and of course, we will have a lot of commentary and breakdown for you on this stuff.
Oh yeah, and before we go, let's pitch our upcoming shows because we got some cool. We got a cool show that we're doing tomorrow. A cool interview.
That's right. We got a couple of things. We got a very cool interview tomorrow. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a very cool person who is a former PsyOps special operative within the German military. We're going to be interviewing her. Also, before I let you guys go, Freedom Fest.
Before we let you go. You're trapped here with us.
Before we let you go. Freedom Fest is coming up in Las Vegas, middle of July. It's the 10th through the 14th. We are so excited we're going to be there. David and I are going to be on the ground doing interviews with everybody that you want to hear from at Freedom Fest. So definitely look out for that content. And if you would like to join us there, we would love to have you. We're going to do some sort of cool event. And we have a promo code if you would like to join us.
Go to the $50 off?
freedomfest.com and
Something like
enter the code HumanReaction50 for $50 off your pass. HumanReaction50 for $50 off at freedomfest.com. We would love to have you. I don't think we've mentioned all the sponsors yet, so we'd like to thank Zesty for keeping us hydrated. We'd like to thank Kellen at Rev.promo for these sweet hats. We've got more merchandise at our website, humanreactionpod.com. And, of course, our friend Adam Thune at Intellectual Patriots for doing all the amazing things that he does, making our Discord absolutely amazing and chiming in there.
Yeah, he's the star in the Discord.
He is the star in the Discord, and if you're there, you know it. And we'd like to thank all of you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. We'll do the next one with David back and hopefully with Bennett back so we don't have so many technical difficulties.
But Bennett is the lifeblood that keeps this thing running.
You know what?
We realized that in recent weeks.
You know what? We had to go without him in order to know exactly how much we need him.
How much we need him.
In spite of how much I'm angry at him for leaving in the first place. We need you. So
you had to go travel around Europe. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Anyway.
Go have a vacation.
Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed what was going on here. And let us know in the comments any further thoughts that you have, and we will touch base on our next episode. See you soon.
Team Vivek.
Let's go.